Tradition states that a cocoon master shall suppress the demons. Since the Lion of Peril is no more, we have little choice. We must send a new cocoon master into the forest.
The mid to late 90s was a great time for the creature-catching subgenre, the breakout success of Pokemon, the long-running success of Digimon, and even lesser-known franchises like Monster Rancher making the cultural trip from east to west, spawning TV shows and video games. Every developer at the time wanted to jump on the creature-catcher hype, but not every franchise or game was destined to succeed. Enter Genki, a Japanese game company known for an eclectic mix of previous games, from the 1991 breakout imitation Devilish to the first-person PlayStation mech shooter Kikinak: The DNA Imperative. Genki didn't really have a defined style, so in 1998 they took on the creature-catching genre and made Jade Cocoon: Story of the Tamamayu, a story-driven RPG about capturing wild creatures and then merging them together with a procedural generation algorithm allowing for almost an unlimited number of combinations within the game. It was technology way ahead of its time, effectively combining Pokemon-style battles with Final Fantasy-style storytelling, themes of tradition, loss, and rebirth. So why didn't Jade Cocoon see the same success as either Pokemon or Final Fantasy? To find out, I've gone back and replayed the entire game, caught a ton of creatures and merged them into some unholy monstrosities. I've tried to follow the incomprehensible metaphor-heavy plot, mastered the merging system, and even taken on the secret endless corridor to push my team to the limit, all to answer the simple question: Jade Cocoon: Story of the Tamamayu, was it actually any good? As usual, a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube who keep this channel alive. More information on how you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. Jade Cocoon released for the PlayStation 1 in Japan in 1998 and both North America and Europe in 1999. It didn't have too much advertising, so it did what any game at the time would do: appear on a demo disc, specifically PlayStation demo disc number 23. Unfortunately for Jade Cocoon, this disc also contained a playable demo of Final Fantasy VIII, probably the most anticipated console RPG at the time, so it was instantly overshadowed. Which is a shame, because Jade Cocoon not only plays well, but it looks pretty good too, and this is because the character designer and the in-game animated cutscenes were made by Katsuya Kondo, the lead character designer for Studio Ghibli, and almost all of the cutscenes within Jade Cocoon carry that recognizable Ghibli style. It was just about successful enough to see a sequel on the PlayStation 2, which I remember owning and am now super annoyed that I can't find because it's one of the rarer PlayStation 2 games and goes for a high price in the second-hand market. So let's load up Jade Cocoon 1 and begin our journey. The game's cutscenes are voiced, but there are no subtitles, so it can be a tad difficult to work out what they're actually saying. The plot starts quite obscure and gets even more complicated from there.
For a time, they brought life and happiness to the forest. Soon, the forest was visited by fate. The divine spirits created a beast in their own image. Elram warned, "That is the beast of knowledge, and it will someday bring temptation upon you. Thou shalt not associate with it."
The plot starts strong, but devolves, as we'll see, very quickly into an incomprehensible metaphor-laden mess, but the voice cast is something special. Guy, the elder Nagi prophet, is voiced by Michael Forrest. He's done a ton of anime work and was also Master Mikado in The Bouncer. Why does everything link back to The Bouncer? We'll look at other characters as they appear. You are Levant from the village of Cyrus. A silent protagonist, your father was a cocoon master, a magical animal tamer, but he's been missing for many years. We open at this watchtower where Levant is talking to his childhood friend Mabu, voiced by Michelle Ruff, credited under the stage name Georgetta Rose. She has since worked on Demon Slayer, Resident Evil, and Bleach. This short chat establishes them as friends and that Levant plays the ocarina. Now, it's impossible to ignore the connection to Zelda with an ocarina, but as Jade Cocoon and Ocarina of Time were in development at the same time, and the ocarina is a major thing in both games, it's likely just a case of simultaneous creation. We're then joined by the very irritating Louis.
Louis, this is none of your business, kid. Get out of here!
I'm not a kid! And besides, this watchtower's my responsibility. I have a job, not like your stupid cocoon master, so there!
Louis is voiced by Brianne Siddall, who would go on to play Koromon in Digimon Adventures. She's captured that irritating child energy perfectly. Louis is the watchtower guard responsible for protecting the village from beasts of the forest. It's late, so everyone goes to bed, and now you get to explore the village briefly. This is your central hub, except you can't walk around. The village is a static screen, and you select which house you would like to go to, or the shop, the blacksmith, the silk mill, the graveyard. You don't need to visit every location, and none of them are open right now, so we just go home. While on a map, you can walk around, but it is tank controls. Left and right turn you, hold square or triangle to run. Levant chats to his mum, and they lament his missing father. The festival is tomorrow to honour the dead, but they're unsure if they should honour him, as they don't know if he's actually dead. So we go to sleep and have a disturbing dream. We're in this forest, and we meet the Dream Man. We learn Levant's dad was well known and went by the nickname the Lion of Parel, Parel being the landmass that everyone lives on. Dream Man says there's no way that we are his son, and we fight. Now, combat in Jade Cocoon is quite complex, and I'll explain the entire thing soon, but this is a scripted death. All you can do is attack. It's a turn-based system, and you're guaranteed to lose, because the Dream Man transforms into a dragon that is way more powerful than you. Important note, this is the first actual gameplay section, and it's 13 minutes into the game, and even then, this is still a scripted loss. You don't actually start playing Jade Cocoon, making any meaningful choices, until about an hour in. We wake from our dream, and Kelmar, the blacksmith's son, bursts in saying there's a problem with the forest, so we run outside and see an army of flying monsters sweeping into the village. But thankfully, the wise woman casts a protection dome. Cut to another 10-minute cutscene between Grotta, the ineffective village elder, Jibara, the sassy and confrontational political figurehead, and Garai, the wise woman and priestess of the Nagi, a race of magical women destined to work in harmony with Cocoon Masters. She's the one that cast a protection spell. The insects swarming the village are an ancient sign of a terrible imbalance of energy. They are called...
I deeply regret to say, those winged insects are the Oni Boo-Boo, the locusts of apocalypse.
The Oni Boo-Boo. At this point, you might be feeling a tad overwhelmed in the game with the amount of names thrown at you, but just wait, because it gets way worse. It seems the Oni Boo-Boo have cast a magical sleep curse on the village. There are reports of this sleep curse happening many years ago and destroying entire civilizations, and it is only cured by a magical herb found deep within the forest. Jibara, the more aggressive political one, suggests a human sacrifice to appease the creatures, while Garai suggests we go into the forest and attempt to find the mythical Galabas herb. Unfortunately, the forest is dangerous and only a Cocoon Master can make the trip. With Levant's dad, the Lion of Parel, gone, I guess Levant needs to take up the mantle. However, a Cocoon Master needs a Nagi bride, as only Nagi women can purify the captured cocoons and turn them into tamed battle creatures. So Levant and his friend Mabu are chosen for the sacred union. Yes, this game has arranged child marriage. During the ceremony, Levant is given the Earring of the Hunter. This is a key item which lets you teleport from the forest back to the village at any time when you're not in battle. And if you die in battle, it will activate and bring you back, which is a nice narrative way to explain mechanics. We do, however, learn that purifying the cocoons causes immense pain to the Nagi women, and if pushed too far, they may die. So that's quite concerning. The now married Levant and Mabu have a chat at the watchtower again, and Louis shows up, just being abrasive as usual, and finally we head home and fall asleep into another dream. Now again note, it's taken about 40 minutes to get here, and so far it's been almost entirely cutscenes. Jade Cocoon really front loads the entire plot. This time in the dream we fight a basic enemy, but we've still not had an actual combat tutorial, so I'll explain that when the game does. Win this fight and then refight the Dream Man in dragon form and again lose. Once awake, we chat to old woman Garai, and she tells us to talk to the blue Cocoon Master found within Beetle Forest. He probably has some of the herb we need to cure the sleep curse. She tells us the key to the Beetle Gate is currently with the annoying child Louis, so we need to go and ask for it. She then gives us a capture flute, used to both capture and summon creatures within a battle. This is a key item, so you don't need to equip it. In fact, as far as equipable things go, you only have 3 equipped slots: a weapon, an armor, and an accessory. We leave the hut and go to the forest, and Mabu, our wife, stops us and gives us the Ring of Rhys, a symbol of her love and trust for us. We quickly swing by the blacksmith, check on the weapon stock, don't need any right now, and then check out the shop for your basic healing items, mugwort for Levant's health, and various qualities of shab liquor for your monster's health and mana. We grab the beetle key from Louis and then head to the forest gates and reach the Divine Barrier, a central hub linking all 4 forest gates with the main village. We can unlock the beetle gate with the beetle key and step through, and if you have read every conversation, it will take you an hour to reach this point, and no actual non-scripted gameplay has happened yet. Once in the beetle forest, we meet Chorus, an old friend of our dad's, and they finally give us a combat tutorial, so now, after an hour, we can actually talk about combat. You can carry 3 monsters with you and summon them during combat. If you don't have any, or if your monsters are dead, you'll be left fighting the enemy on your own. Unlike Pokemon, where the creatures tend to avoid attacking humans, in Jade Cocoon you can just run up and stab whatever you're fighting. And they can also hurt, poison, or kill you. If Levant gets taken to no hit points, even if you have creatures left, you lose and are teleported out of the forest. Combat is turn-based like Final Fantasy, using the creature's speed stat to determine the order of attacks. But sometimes the speed of one side is so high they'll actually get 2 attacks for every opponent's 1 attack. So it's almost like the Final Fantasy X attack list, except you can't see the list. If you're playing as Levant, you can attack, use an item to heal either yourself or one of your monsters, attempt to capture the enemy you're fighting, or run away, which isn't always guaranteed. But the core of Jade Cocoon isn't fighting as Levant, in fact that's remarkably hard to do. It's the creature capture mechanic. So let's explore that. Levant carries 12 cocoons with him, shown in the menu as empties. When you've weakened a monster, use the flute to try and capture them. A success adds the captured monster to your cocoon count as a firefly. Failing a capture still uses an empty cocoon, but doesn't generate a firefly. Capturing a creature raises Levant's capture level. This makes capturing higher level creatures easier, but it doesn't increase your actual stats. Once you have a few fireflies, return to Mabu, your wife, and she will purify the fireflies using Nagi magic, and then store the creatures, and you'll get all of your cocoons back. With a creature stored, you can choose to add them to your team and carry up to 3. When in battle, choose Summon to bring 1 creature to the field. You can only have 1 out at a time. You can then perform a basic melee attack. You can choose to defend, which reduces the incoming damage for the next attack and regenerates some of your mana. You can choose special, which requires the creature to either have horns, fangs, claws, a tail, or feet, and sometimes has an extra elemental damage added, or you can cast magic, which is similar to special but doesn't require a specific body type. Each creature has an element, some have a mix of multiple, and it's shown with this elemental square here. Water, fire, air, and earth. The element points to the one it's good against. Going clockwise, fire burns air, air hurts earth, earth kills water, water kills fire. Some creatures have multiple elements and suffer from the weaknesses of all of them. While capturing a creature as Levant raises your capture level, killing a creature as Levant doesn't do anything. But killing a creature as another creature gives that creature experience. Now, the experience formula is extremely weird. Basically, killing another creature that's the same level as you will always award the exact amount of experience you need to level up. Killing a creature 1 level lower than you will give you half the experience you need. Killing a creature 2 levels lower than you will give a quarter of the experience you need, and then 1/8, 1/16, 1 out of 32 going down. The formula is shown on screen here. But as we'll see later, what this means is there's actually a soft cap to where you can level to through combat, because it does reach a point where killing any enemy gives you less than 1 experience. I'll explain the maths behind this later on in the video. Jade Cocoon has 171 different creatures, but that's not necessarily the strength of the game. The strength is in the merging system, which doesn't necessarily create new creatures. Instead, it combines the strengths of 2 existing ones into a stronger, more complex version of one of them, while remaining essentially the same creature. Imagine smashing a Pikachu and a Rhydon together to create a Pikachu with tougher skin and a horn, while it remains technically a Pikachu. So let's dive into the merging system, because this is complex, so I'll break it down. When you've captured a few creatures, talk to Mabu and open the merge interface. Here you can see the creatures in your party and the ones stored. Selecting a creature shows you their stats, levels, experience bar to the next level, and all the basic RPG stuff: attack, defense, defense, magic attack, magic defense, and speed. You can also see this elemental grid, and then this important square box with 2 scales, from physical attack to magical attack vertically, and defense to speed horizontally. The red dot shows where this creature falls within this scale, and this shows what they'll gain when that creature levels up. Will it be a physical or magical creature, and then by how much, and will it focus on defense or speed, and by how much? Getting this red dot to an extreme edge or corner through merging is basically choosing to hyper-specialize the creature so every level gives the maximum stats to one specific thing. So let's talk merging. When you merge a creature, you put the primary creature in the first slot and the secondary in the second slot, and then you can see the results. Now, it's super important to remember that the result will show you its stats and whether they've increased or decreased, but the increase or decrease is based on the stats of the primary creature. So if your primary creature has 20 and your secondary has 40, and the result goes up to 23, it will show as a positive gain of 3, even though technically you're losing a load from the secondary's base stat. Because of this, always put your strongest creature as the primary, so the stat gains are actually gains and not hidden losses. Merging also combines or enhances the elements and the little stat square values of both, and sometimes combines attacks and magic too. You can press square to see how the abilities and stats and skills of both creatures' inputs will affect the outcome. Combining creatures with similar magical traits can sometimes cause the new creature to know the more powerful version of that magic, and there are only 2 versions: single target and AoE. Merging a creature will keep the level of the primary creature and give experience to it equal to what it would have received if it defeated the secondary in battle. So merging is also a way to level up and not feel like you've lost the experience from capturing the creature instead of killing it. But the mechanical merging isn't the most interesting thing about Jade Cocoon. Now we need to look at the visuals, and very little of this is explained in game, so we need to look at the game's programming. Jade Cocoon has 171 specific creatures, and each of those base unchanged creatures is programmed into the game. But each of those creatures has 48 unique identifying characteristics called merge slots associated with it. These govern the creature's physical appearance, from head shape, horn size, wingspan, leg and joint orientation, idle animation, claw curve, tail shape, amount of toes, length of arm. Everything is governed by a value within one of those 48 merge slots. For example, if slot 7 governs feet and has a value of 2, the creature may have small feet. When you merge 2 creatures together, 32 merge slot values are taken from the primary creature and 16 are then taken from the secondary, but they are not taken on a direct one-to-one swapped position basis. Instead, they are swapped relative to the table on screen now. So the new creature will have 48 merge slot values. The first value will be whatever the first value for the primary creature is, but the second value of the new creature will be the third value of the primary creature, and the third value of the new creature will be the 5th value of the primary creature. The values of merge slots 33 to 48 of the new creature will be found from the values within the secondary creature. The table on screen now shows which old values will be placed into which new position to calculate the appearance. Finally, the new creature will keep the main posture of the primary creature and inherit the skin texture of the secondary, with a potential skin highlight being added if the new creature is changing elements. The new creature will keep the name of the primary, as merging doesn't create a brand new creature except for the very secret hidden creature we'll find later. What this means is, because you can merge as many times as you want, Jade Cocoon has a virtually unlimited amount of creature appearances. And as you keep merging creatures multiple times, they change repeatedly. The game doesn't have every possible appearance hard-coded in. Instead, it has an algorithm which takes the values you're giving it and creates the creatures in-game. The last touch of the leveling system is, no matter what a merged creature looks like, all creatures physically increase in overall size as they level up, making them look stronger. The strength of this system is firstly how technically impressive it is for a game released on console in 1998, to boast an almost unlimited amount of customization, but also how it's possible to guide the appearance of your creature to create something you think looks cool. If you want wings on your creature, just find something with wings and merge it with that. If you want horns, teeth, claws, tails, or a different texture, keep merging until you have that. And remember those special attacks needing the creature to have claws, teeth, feet? You can keep merging until you essentially give your creation those features and unlock the special attacks. And yes, a creature can have all of them at once. There's no denying how impressive this variation is. However, it does also play slightly against the game in a marketing point of view. Pokemon has a mascot because a Pikachu looks like a Pikachu and always will. Each Pokemon or each Digimon looks like any other of the same. They are immediately identifiable as what they are. Jade Cocoon doesn't have that. One creature in Jade Cocoon can look totally different to another of exactly the same creature because of the endless merging. And this means you don't get recognizable things because variation is the focus. Having a cool looking creature in Jade Cocoon is fun, but it makes marketing pretty difficult because you can't show your friend the cool looking creature and have them understand what it is. You have to explain every single one. Creature catching games need mascots, unchanging and identifiable, and Jade Cocoon simply didn't have that. Other creature capture games don't normally have the protagonist run up and stab the creatures in the face either, but that's fine here. So back to battle, we weaken the creature, try to capture it, and this means playing the flute, and you have to watch this capture animation every single time. You cannot skip this. Back in the Beetle Forest, you'll actually see the enemies walking around on screen before a battle. There are no random encounters, and if you're agile enough, you can just run past these enemies. The screens themselves are static images with fixed camera angles, lovely background art, and gorgeous use of foreground coverings like leaves and vines, and often 2 or more exits from any screen, turning each forest into a maze, and the game does look beautiful. However, there's no local map, and the camera angles often break the filmmaking 180 rule, meaning if you leave a screen heading to the right, on the next screen you may enter from the right and now be heading to the left. This makes navigation of the game's 4 forests much more complex as you cannot rely on screen direction to remain consistent. I capture some creatures and have Mabu purify the fireflies and then equip them to summon them, and while in a battle I do notice a strange glitch. My health and mana bars, in both combat and the post-combat level screen, and the experience bar there as well, seem to be overflowing the visual limits of their box. So I did a quick Google search and it turns out this is an emulation problem that's been known about for the past 12 years and just isn't worth the effort to fix because the PlayStation 1 architecture is a complete mess. It seems that every bar is showing as twice as long as it should be, but it still drains at the correct scale and rate, so ignore the bars. Look at the numbers. I find this strange looking teleport pad in the forest. It seems dormant, and then I run into this temple and there's a locked chest and I don't have a key. Interesting note, there are exactly as many keys in the game as locked chests, and after about halfway in you can't return to earlier sections, so if you miss a key, you are permanently missing a possible chest. I discover in this fight that elemental advantages are really important, and I just one-hit KO anything weak to water with my angry turtle. By now, my main grievance is the static screens you move through are relatively small and tight, and there is a black loading screen between each and every one. Combine this with the unskippable creature capture animation and creature merging animation, and you'll find that you actually spend more time watching Jade Cocoon load or play through unskippable animations than actually playing the game. You can also only save these specific save crystals. Thankfully they're unlimited use, but fighting back to a save point after a particularly brave delve into a forest can take a good 20 minutes on its own. I find this knowledge tablet. It's a unique item, and when examined it contains hints and tips on how to play the game. That's pretty interesting. They've effectively scattered the guide on how to be a Cocoon Master throughout the game and expect a player to find it. Thankfully the tablets are more advanced tips and nothing essential, so it's more of a reward for exploring. Later on we'll even find tablets which hint at how to merge into one of the game's 2 secret monsters. In battle, sometimes even the enemy defend, which is a lovely touch because it shows that the enemy also uses mana and has to replenish it between attacks. And here's something great, switching monsters mid-battle doesn't always count as your turn like it does in Pokemon. As long as the creature you are switching from and to have higher speed stats than the opponent, you can both switch and then attack with your new creature. If you get into a 2-on-1 fight, you'll also notice that you don't have a little arrow pointing to whichever enemy you're targeting. Instead, the whole camera swings to focus in on them. In fact, in fights, you'll see that the camera only ever shows the traditional sideways view during attack animations. When you're selecting an attack, the camera is behind your own creature. This enemy can poison you, but not just your monsters, they can poison Levant as well. Imagine a Beedrill just stabbing Ash in the face. That's Levant's reality. Poison thankfully only ticks over when you are active and in the battle, and once a battle is over, it drops off. Status effects do not carry over. I even get a ring of poison from this battle, which is not an equipable item. It is a one-time use inventory item which inflicts poison on the enemy in a fight. By the time I finished this game, this was still in my inventory, because like any good RPG player, I always assumed there would be a harder fight, and so every consumable is saved until the game is actually finished. Use my magical earring to return to my wife and throw a load of fireflies at her to purify them, and then smash the creatures together. My Mushab and Skawasp combined to create this thing. You may have noticed that fights don't reward money. Now, to get money, you must purify the fireflies into creatures and then spin those creatures into silk. Higher quality creatures, or more merged ones, spin into better silk, and then you sell the silk at the shop. Return to the forest and discover that enemies respawn quite slowly. They actually have a very small chance to respawn every time you move from screen to screen. Now, some screens have longer loading times because they're effectively loading new collections of screens, and these transitions always respawn everything. Run into this masked kid in the forest, then have to fight him. Seems the forest are filled with poachers and bandits and people who just generally doubt you're a cocoon master and want to fight. They effectively serve as both damage and health checks. If you've been winning every fight up to now, you will be on the right level to beat them. In fact, in the 11 hours it took me to beat Jade Cocoon, I only had to grind for one specific boss. Find a cool spear in this hut, and the description mentions it has a moist blue glow, and I discover that equipping a weapon also shows up on the model of Levant in the real world, which is nice. Finally reach the center, a giant cocoon-looking structure, and inside is Chorus, the blue cocoon master. He does have the herb we need, some calabash, but not enough to actually reverse the Oni Boo-Boo's curse. He says he gets it in a powdered form from someone called Kikinak within the Dragonfly Forest. So he gives us the Dragonfly Gate key and tells us to go and find Kikinak. Head back to the village, purify, merge, and you know, this obscure system reminds me quite a lot of the ring merging mechanic in Eternal Ring. I guess old games really loved their combine stuff to get new results mechanic. While here, we have a word with old woman Garai, and she tells us to visit the graveyard and talk to the Gravedigger and ask about Kikinak. So we pop over and find an old man sitting under the shade of a tree. We ask about the forest, and he gives us a long animated exposition story all about Kikinak. It turns out that many years ago, a legendary woodcutter wanted to cut down the biggest tree in the forest, but Kikinak effectively stopped him. Also, Kikinak is weak to fire. The Gravedigger is essentially an optional lore dump between any individual forest and boss. So after the Dragonfly Gate we go, unlock the gate from the barrier room and into a new forest where I discover elemental enemies are mostly palette-swapped versions of other enemies. Find my first treasure chest key. Consider running all the way back to the first forest just to open the chest, and then do it, and nothing special. Merge a bird and an armored dog into an armored bird, and then the armored bird and an insect into a slightly armored bird insect thing. This battle starts with the enemy getting 2 preemptive hits in, which is a little bit unfair. It also encourages you to keep Levant's health at maximum at all times, because you can, and will, be killed by powerful enemies getting a preemptive hit in. The temple is locked, so we search around for a key or a button. You know, it's a shame, but I'm not really invested in my creatures on an emotional level. And I think it's because merging is the most efficient way to gain stats, but it also changes how the creature looks and acts. And for me, visual identity is a major part of connecting and identifying with something. I think it is for a lot of people. It's why Pokemon evolving and permanently changing their appearance was such a big point in Pokemon. But it's also nice to know what the Pokemon is going to look like when it has evolved. Like how Digimon can change their look briefly and then revert to a base form. But with Jade Cocoon switching how they look so often, I don't recognize a creature by its name. I only recognize it by its function. I think, oh, that's my blocker. That's my fire magic attacker. That's my water group sweeper. It becomes more about the use within battle and less about the creatures having any lasting personality, because they just don't. I do like how this map crisscrosses itself with the Temple Arch Bridge leading over the previous path from below. Looping map design is something I really enjoy. Find the new creature, Omar, the defensive turtle. I wonder if there's a best creature in the game. So I Google it, and not really. The best tactic, however, does seem to be merge early until the red dot on the level up stat matrix is maxed in a certain direction, and then just keep leveling that creature entirely through combat. And since merging gives experience, it is possible to get a super high level creature without it ever seeing combat. And I say super high and not maxed because I finished the game with a squad of level 25 creatures, and while the game essentially has no max level, it's physically impossible to reach higher than level 52 through combat alone. And this is because of the super strange way the game gives experience. So let's explain this. Instead of increasing the experience needed between levels, either for Levant or monsters, it instead decreases the experience given based on a formula, taking into account your creature's level and the level of the creature you defeated. It works like this. Levant and any creature will always require exactly 67,108,864 experience to reach the next level from wherever they are. And defeating or capturing an enemy of equal level will always give exactly that amount. But for every one level difference, the experience given is halved from the previous. What this means is you only need to halve 67,108,864 26 times to reach a number smaller than 1. And when the game gives experience, it rounds down. This means if you fight an enemy 26 levels lower than you will receive 0 experience. And with the highest level enemy in the game being level 26, once you're 26 levels above them, which will be level 52, you'd receive no experience from beating them. Although to reach level 52 from 51, you would need to defeat 67,108,864 level 26 enemies, which with the average battle taking about 20 to 30 seconds, would take just under 373,000 hours or 42.5 years of solid gameplay. So we can all just agree that level 26 is effectively the soft cap, 30 if you want to be a show-off. You can of course level by merging two creatures of the same level to level up. Combining two level 26 creatures would make a level 27 creature, then combine two 27s to make a 28. But the amount of level 26 creatures you would need to capture, combined with the fact you can only capture 12 at a time and then there is an unskippable merging animation, means it would still take years of constant play. So I capture a load of turtles, return to the village and merge them all together through several steps and create the Mega Turtle, a solid defensive turtle block. Could even throw the water dragon and the turtle together to make a dragon turtle. Oh, how about an armored flying dragon turtle? With my Frankenstein dream indulged, I head back to the forest to test out my new dragon turtle and discover that I have the special move Foot, and it's a stomp style AoE which just wrecks enemy groups. It's also very important to remember that Levant's HP does not increase when he gains a capture level. You can only increase this with very specific consumable items, and even then only by a tiny amount. So Levant is not your tank. This means despite how time-consuming it is to summon a creature every single battle, because Levant always starts out, it is better to do that than be one-hit killed. This also means Levant's weapon upgrades eventually become somewhat redundant, as you should never be attacking with him. Run down into this spiraling cave and bump into this Cthulhu-looking bird. Now, I can't tell what is new and what isn't, mostly because the names of the creatures do not relate to their appearance or combat styles in any way, at least not in an English way. I think one of the reasons Pokemon is so successful is the names tell you a bit about Pokemon when you hear them. Beedrill is a bee with drill hands. Magnemite is a magnet. Pidgey is a pigeon. It doesn't work with every Pokemon, but the majority are self-descriptive. None of the Jade Cocoon enemies have that advantage. For example, if I said what does a doggle chew look like, you might be thinking of a dog. Well, no, it looks like a walking fish with large hands and a spiked head. What about an old? Well, that's this thing here. And Radmine, that is this snake with a spiked face. I finished this fight and ranked Levant up to Adept, and these ranks affect the chances of capturing higher level creatures shown by the table on screen. You'll also note how level 40 is called Developer, because they didn't expect anyone to ever actually reach it. Into a spiral cave and press this button which opens a door at the far side, fight my way through, run out of empty capture slots and teleport back, purify merge, and then fight my way all the way back again, which is difficult because I do not remember the way and get very lost. While in this cave, I find the Secret of Killing tablet, which sounds extremely ominous. However, you can't read it because immediately after picking it up, Birdman Kikinak appears, takes it back off us, and flies away. Although, glitch, there are actually a few frames where you can open the menu and use the earring to return to camp and read the tablet. However, it has no in-game use. We chase after Kikinak and a new enemy. This guy's green. He was blue before. I wonder if new enemies can spawn where old ones were. The menu also tells me so far I've caught 12 out of 171 creatures. Now, be careful because you can permanently miss creatures as you advance through the game. So if you want to be a completionist, capture everything as you go. Meet another poacher outside in the forest and make short work of them in a battle, and they give me the lava key. Maybe this works on the locked door from earlier. Now to just remember how to get back there. Open the door into the temple and it's a snowy field. Or are the flowers just all brilliant white? Well, inside the temple we find and meet Kikinak. Nothing too special here, and despite the Gravedigger's advice of weak to fire, you can kill Kikinak just as easily with any element. Defeat Kikinak and... hang on, I know this voice. That's Darren Norris. He voiced Cosmo in The Fairly Odd Parents.
Wow, you are so powerful! Calabash? Oh, you mean this powder? My friend Yamu from the Spider Forest gave it to me.
We ask Kikinak about the calabash powder and he doesn't have much. He usually gets it from Yamu in the Spider Forest, but he gives us what he has and the key to the Spider Forest, and then an ocarina, which is a more powerful capture flute. Back in the village we learn that Yamu is a fallen forest spirit, and the plot begins to get extremely metaphysical with dimensions and spirit worlds and darkness inside of us here. But more importantly, I consider smashing my defense turtle with my illithid bird to make a turtle dactyl, but don't. With this, we set off to the Spider Forest in search of Yamu and more calabash herb, but first, our wife wants to talk, and that is never a good sign. So, Jade Cocoon feels like two very different games mashed together running simultaneously. The mechanics-focused creature capture and battler, which is great, and the very personal and emotional story of the people who live in the world suffering, mostly through the binding constraints of tradition, and unfortunately, these two never really entwine together. Mabu explains that every time she purifies our captured fireflies into usable creatures or merges them, it causes her immense physical and emotional pain, and she's beginning to resent the lifestyle she has, but is trying to not resent us personally, separating the responsibility from the person, which is rather a deep and heavy plot. She's basically upset about the bindings of arranged marriage and feels lonely but knows that it's not our fault. So Jade Cocoon 1 does try to explore extremely deep and powerful themes, but it never really commits enough time to it to make it relevant. And it doesn't change any of the mechanical in-game stuff that you see the impact that this emotional turmoil is having on anyone. It's always a really deep conversation and then you go back to doing exactly what you were doing before with no difference. It's like Jade Cocoon wants you to feel the weight and pressure of its world, the trials and tribulations of those suffering within it, but doesn't want to impact the gameplay in any way. So those emotional struggles never affect you mechanically. And as the mechanics are the fun bit, it's kind of hard to care. It's not a bad plot idea, it's just not tied to gameplay in a noticeable way. Off to the Spider Forest now. All enemies are now level 7, and eventually we meet Yami, a cute little fuzzball. Yami asks us for a berry, which we happen to have, so I hand it over. He explains Yamu is his big brother, and honestly I was kind of hoping for more than just information, but I'll take it. I find Knowledge Tablet 5, which explains petrification, which will be relevant very quickly. After a stone effect is applied to either Levant or a minion, every turn, that creature that is affected with stone will slowly petrify more until they just die. They'll also lose speed and attack power while this is happening. I then kill this little dragon dude and it drops a sword, the Dragon Crest sword. I wonder if this is rare, so I look it up and yeah, turns out this is the most powerful weapon in the game. Okay, speedrun strats right here. Just get the drop. It's easy. So I equip Levant and I try it out, and this sword one-hit kills almost anything, but has middling accuracy, so it's a risk to use, but extremely powerful. Another blocked door, but you know what? With my Dragon Crest sword, I'm not even worried. You know, it's a real shame that killing monsters with Levant doesn't actually give anything, because I could just power level right now, fight through the forest, and by now I'm noticing that while each section of the forest does look slightly different, they don't feel different enough to really justify them being unique areas. Color palette is mostly the same, camera angles, layout, types of flora and fauna. If you showed me random screenshots of each forest, you wouldn't really be able to tell them apart, not in any noticeable way. Eventually I run into Yamu and they want a Minion fang, which is a key item I don't yet have, so they run off and I keep searching. I then find a spider warp item, which is a forest-specific item which allows you to use the teleportation pedestals that we've been seeing dotted around the place, so I guess I just missed the warp items in the previous forests. Eventually find the Minion fang Yamu wanted and run into Toto Yamu, who asks for the Tears of Rhys, which is the ring Mabu gave us back at the start to symbolize our relationship. And yeah, I do feel slightly bad giving this across, but we need the calabash herb to cure the village, so I assume my wife will understand and I hand it over. They give us a very small amount of calabash and say if we want to know the location to where it grows, we must bring better treasure. So I report back to the village, and here's where the plot gets weird. Jibara, the politically aggressive woman, says if Yamu knows the location of the calabash, it must be at the base of the divine tree, because the Yamu spirit has been tasked with defending the divine tree. And all the monsters are linked to the divine tree. So we could actually prevent a future attack if we imprison the divine tree itself. So we are now tasked with not only finding the calabash, but finding the divine tree it's likely linked to, and using a magical MacGuffin to imprison the tree's spiritual essence. We also discover that Jabara's ancestors were responsible for splitting the divine forest into 4 sections, and this will ensure the continued safety of humanity. To do this, we are given the Champion Belt, a shiny wrestling belt the Yamu will likely accept as a treasure for trade, and a Capture Amulet which can imprison the essence of the divine tree. However, wise woman Garai doesn't trust Jabara, and I mean, yeah, she's just asked us to arrest a tree. I'm not totally on board with this plan either. However, we do still need more calabash herb to cure the sleep curse, so back in we go. Mabu is also a tad upset that we traded her gifted ring, but understands that we did do it to save the village. I make a quick detour to the blacksmiths to pick up some better armor, and then journey back to Spider Forest to seek out Yamu again. And why does Radmole look like a beetle and not a radioactive mole? It was right there in the name. You really dropped the ball with that one. Eventually we hunt down Yamu again, hand over the belt, and he gives us the ring back, saying it glows when we wear it, but it didn't glow for him, so he's clearly not super special magic awesome like we are. With the new treasure, he agrees to open the door to the divine tree, but he can't take us directly there as he also swore an oath to protect the tree, so this is like a loophole. It's accessible, but still difficult. The previously locked door is now a magical portal and sends us to the roots of the divine tree, filled with these super cool looking wooden root creatures. Using these in merges is great because it totally messes up the results, very Lovecraftian. Finally, we find the divine tree and use the magical amulet to imprison its essence. Hopefully we've also found the source of enough calabash to save the village, so we head back. But twist time. It seems Jabara has imprisoned old woman Garai, and it's revealed that Garai is actually the reincarnation of Azura, the goddess of death, and has been guiding events to reconcile the waking and the dream world, the world of light and the world of darkness. They have come to purify this land from the beasts of knowledge, which happen to be humans, so then everyone gets turned to stone. Look, I have no idea who's good or bad anymore. I just want to battle cool-looking creatures together, so let's just go together on this. With everyone turned to stone, we head back to Garai's hut and find the moth key, the key to the final forest, and now our wife, Mabu, has been turned into a magical fairy, and her soul has returned to Elrim, the spiritual one, and Garai appears as a spirit and explains Mabu's cocoon will soon hatch and she will ascend. Also, we are the chosen one of light and are destined to battle the chosen one of darkness to reunite the two worlds and bring balance to existence because we are the ray of hope. To do this, we must find the Nagi chieftain within the dark dimension itself hidden within the moth forest, and then we get given our dad's old jacket and sent off. Look, if you're having a hard time following the game, I can promise you it gets even more complicated. Into the moth forest and fight through the traditional tentacle floating snails, then encounter a Rattlechew, which is one creature I do remember from Jade Cocoon 2. With the village turned into stone and our wife a fairy, we currently have no shop and no purification place. Also, if you die, your fairy wife revives you outside the moth gate. However, they've not added text into her text box, despite the fact that she has dialogue. Probably a missed bit of code. Take down a poacher and get the pupa key. Lots of themes of cycles of rebirth and gestation. We unlock this massive temple in the center of the forest and find a huge cocoon, which opens up, lets us inside, and seals us in afterwards. And after you've entered, you cannot leave. This is the Nagi Temple, where we meet Ni, the leader of the Nagi, and this is one of the most confusing and overwhelming exposition and plot dumps in any game ever. Ni explains everything in metaphors. This is a 9.5-minute speech filled with religious keywords, similes, myths. It's esoteric soup. Just try and make sense of it. I'll edit out the pauses, but imagine 9 solid minutes of this.
When the 4 divine barriers have been opened, the power of light and darkness shall usher in the time of gathering. When the chosen ones pass through these gates and meet at last, the beasts of divine power shall be freed from their curse and achieve tranquility. And the beasts of knowledge shall gain the fruits of new knowledge. But it is the fruit that bears the seeds of admonition. The prophet Gi spoke, "Craft a ring from the tears of Rhys and place it on the baby who arrives." Our souls have already experienced 2 ordeals. Lust was the first, the forbidden love of the divine spirit and the beast of knowledge. And then, the birth of the twins who possess divine power. We gained love from the ordeal of lust, but at the same time, we came to know doubt. Greed was the second ordeal. It began with the love between Alcana, the beast of divine power, and Menik, the beast of knowledge. Divine silk was used in an attempt to conquer doubt and save love. We named the child the Ray of Hope. Of course, it is Mabu of whom I speak. The birth of Mabu signifies the reincarnation of Menik and Karis, the light and the darkness. As foretold by the prophecy, I sent Garai out on her journey with Mabu. You indeed are the chosen one of light, who was led here by the Ray of Hope. You shall use the keys of the 4 divine barriers to summon the crystal for your first ordeal.
Ray of Hope, Champion of Light, Divine Beast, Dark World. It's every cliche and title thrown together, and ultimately it ends up making less than no sense. It's like the mechanics of Pokemon mixed with the incredibly over-the-top storytelling of Final Fantasy, and then you add in a bit of continuity of Digimon, but ultimately it all boils down to this. We need to pass the 4 trials to rejoin the light and dark world, because passing a trial will gain us a jewel, and combining all the jewels will allow us to take on the Champion of Dark. The first trial was being a decent person to Mabu, and the Tears of Rhys ring glowing proves that we have passed that. So we get the first of 4 jewels. To get the other 3, we must venture into dark versions of the previous forests, meet the leader at the center, and defeat the darkness which lies within their hearts. Because dark spirits are feeding on the darkness within them and becoming stronger. This is very Kingdom Hearts. We also now have 2 new assistants. Ra will purify cocoons and merge stuff, and Moo is a shop. So basically you are now halfway, go and do the entire game again, but harder. So the first thing I do is spend 20 minutes merging everything I have into a horrific amalgamation, a merge monster soup to min-max some stats, and then off we go. Dark Beetle Forest is thankfully exactly the same layout, just with a colour filter applied and creepy music, and the enemies are a lot tougher. Jade Cocoon is effectively following the tradition of replay the game in an evil version, like Symphony of the Night or the Mirror World in Devil May Cry. However, those worlds added different things. Symphony of the Night flipped the map upside down, and Devil May Cry had a different boss fight with new mechanics. Jade Cocoon is just extending its runtime with exactly the same assets. In the centre, we find the essence of the Chorus Cocoon Master. He is terrified of tradition, of ritual, of purification. He doesn't understand his place within the world, and the Dark Spirit is feeding on this, and the Dark Spirit manifests as a terrifying clown-looking thing. So we fight, and the clown summons a skeletal scorpion dragon with wings. Okay, now we're getting into some awesome creature design. These boss fights are way tougher than anything you've fought before, and they drain your MP quickly. And once the dragon is down, you have to fight the clown itself, or the Earth Spirit. Thankfully, they are way easier than the creatures they summon. And with them defeated, Chorus overcomes his fear, and we receive the Fire Jewel. So we go back to the temple, and the corridor, which previously just took us to the dark version of the Beetle Forest, now leads to the dark version of the Dragonfly Forest. So if you missed any creatures in Dark Beetle Forest, tough, they're gone forever, no completionists for you. The Dark Dragonfly Forest introduces us to the Basilisks, who spam the stone petrification attack, and I actually lose every monster I have to stone effects and then Levant, because when stone you attack slower and weaker, so I really need some protection against this. Thankfully, there is a ring item which gives Levant protection, and if you do capture one of the Basilisks and merge it with anything else, the result inherits the Basilisk's innate resistance to stone, making this a lot easier. Grind through the forest and raise to the rank of Hero Cocoon Master, and eventually reach the Foggy Center, and it's Kikinak again. Except Kikinak is Kelmar, the blacksmith's son. They are jealous of our relationship with Mabu and our hero status, saying that they've always loved Mabu from afar and felt resentment that they were destined to only ever be a blacksmith and not a cocoon master, meaning they had no chance with a Nagi woman. The wind boss spirit feeding on this negative emotion is even creepier and clownier than the first, and summons a skeletal slug with 4 arms, and this is quite nightmarish. And unfortunately, this fight is super difficult. I'd say this is probably the hardest fight in the game because I get absolutely wrecked. This is the first moment in the game I've needed to grind levels and merge to a min-max status to really focus on attackers and blockers and elemental damage. And until now, the plot may have been an incomprehensible mess, but the pacing has been decent. But now it needs about 2 hours of grinding. And after a few hours, I do try the boss again, and eventually, after some luck, it goes down. Kelmar deals with his insecurity and the place he has within life, and the darkness within him dissipates, earning us the Jewel of Wind. Now for the Spider Forest, but first I popped to the shop. I found a cool new spear in the previous forest, wanted to kind of get a gauge on the price. I can sell it for 7,000 gold, but to put that into perspective, the dragon sword I found from the drop will sell for 41,000 gold. So yeah, I did genuinely just luck into the best weapon in the game. The Spider Forest features the cute little Yami from before, but they transform into the Earth boss, and you need to fight this guy 3 times, just like the 3 Yami you met previously. It also seems in the Dark Realm, evil seniority is shown by the length of your nose. Around 1 hour of slogging through fights later, we reach the Dark Divine Tree, and the negative emotion here is actually our wife's resentment, her hatred of the traditional chains that bind her life, and her loneliness of sitting in a hut waiting for us to come back. She is afraid of living constantly in our shadow, being defined not by her own powers, but by how those powers relate to the cocoon master she's with, which is a very deep emotional struggle, and this has allowed one of the strongest dark spirits to feed on her negativity. So we fight, and this spirit summons its creature, a giant pair of legs with a head, and in a rather unfortunately placed crotch graphic, there's no way to deny this, it does look like a pair of legs with a giant dick. This fight takes about 15 minutes and takes my whole team down, but eventually we defeat old giant dick legs and our wife accepts her fate, which isn't really the resolution I was hoping for, but this is a game about tradition. And then we earn the final jewel, and with all 4 jewels in our possession, they swirl together and merge into one, and it summons the Dream Man we saw at the very start of the game. The Dream Man explains that he is the chosen of darkness, a being of pure regret and loneliness, and we must fight and defeat him to unite the worlds together. But the fight just starts immediately, and hang on, I haven't had time to heal. I'm still recovering from the last fight. How is this fair? I lose the fight against the Dream Man because I've had no time to prepare or heal up, and then I'd get sent back to the start of the forest, and thankfully, you don't need to fight the previous boss again. You can just journey back and take on Mr. Dream straight away. There is no dark version of the Moth Forest because the Moth Forest was where we found the temple, which unlocks the Nagi thing, which takes us to the dark versions of everything else. I think honestly giving you one of the jewels from the Tears of Rhys ring might just be a cop-out so they didn't have to actually make 4 dark forests. It takes me about 20 minutes to get back to the Dream Man to battle the final boss, and when the rematch happens, Dream Man is actually very easy. Every other attack, he switches elements, meaning he's only actually attacking you 50% of the time, because the switch attack is a move within itself. Knowing this, you can use that to switch to Levant, heal, and then switch out to a stronger creature based on which element you know is coming next. This fight is 4 minutes long and not actually that hard. So we beat the Dream Man, and it turns out that the Dream Man was your dad all along. Your dad knew the light and dark worlds would need reconciliation, and he knew that you would be able to rise to become the warrior of light. So he set off on an intentionally dark path to become the warrior of darkness himself, so the world could be reconciled through father-son bonding. And then we're shown a cutscene where you play a duet together, you on your ocarina and him on his guitar thing. This duet summons the twin dragons of light and dark, and now the world is saved. I think. The village returns from stone to normal and the sleep curse is broken. Credits roll, but the game is not over yet. Finishing the game unlocks the infinite corridor, but you need to save your game, then reset the console, and then reload the now finished game, and you will start in the Nagi Temple. Traveling down the left corridor leads to a forest. It's only a few screens long, but if you beat it, you'll go back to the temple and unlock the next forest. And this is essentially an endless battler mode, with each forest increasing in difficulty to a max level 26, and a rare spawn appearing as a boss of every 8th forest. The first boss, Procedural, has a chance to drop the secret tablet which explains how to merge one of the game's 2 secret monsters, the Birds of Paradise. You need to merge 4 monsters with very specific traits. The irony being, the endless battler mode doesn't actually contain every monster, so if you missed stuff back in World 1 or 2, you can never capture all 171. And that is Jade Cocoon, a monster collector with a battler and a mystic plot and a rather impressive merge system. So now we've finished it, we can answer the simple question, was it actually any good? No denying it has strengths. The merge system, having unlimited combinations, is undeniably impressive. The lovely detail of the backgrounds, the fact the game is fully voice acted actually quite well, and filling a monster collector role on the PlayStation when that style of gameplay was all the rage. But it feels like 2 very different games. The mechanical gameplay is undeniably fun, but it also takes an hour to get through the on-rails opening, effectively front-loading the emotional experience when that's not what most people are there for. And then the unskippable cutscenes every time you try to summon a creature, try to capture a creature, purify or merge a creature. Combined with the small size of the screens you travel through and the loading screens between each one means a good chunk of Jade Cocoon is just watching and waiting for unskippable stuff to happen. The plot starts off understandable enough and becomes so mystical and so cosmic so quickly it eventually becomes too complex to even try and decipher. It's managed to speedrun the Kingdom Hearts complexity trap. Reaching the Infinite Corridor took me 11 hours and 18 minutes, but you can easily spend way more capturing and merging for a specific look. It's a great technical achievement, and I'll remember my playtime fondly, but I don't have too much desire to replay it anytime soon. So yes, it was good for the time and it still holds up as a relatively short RPG, but its overly metaphysical plot bogs it down, and the merging system actually prevents it having any recognizable creatures or mascots, because of the fact it has unlimited potential aesthetics. It's a strong RPG, no doubt, but it doesn't leave you crying out for a sequel. But a sequel it got with Jade Cocoon 2, where you play as a new Cocoon Master under the guidance of Levant, starting in the Nagi Temple. It's got a completely revamped combat system with almost no plot whatsoever, leaving the focus entirely on battling and merging, which personally I actually enjoyed more, and I'll probably review that pretty soon. So to end the review, I will award Jade Cocoon Pokemon in the primary slot, Final Fantasy in the secondary, and merging into an unrecognizable mesh of the two. Out of 10. Cheers for watching. Another massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube who keep the channel alive. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description for links to the Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, and our Discord. And as always, remember.
Now is the time. We must play it together, my son. The symphony of light and darkness. The requiem of souls.